I almost got hit on mile 3. I was in the zone, earbuds in, breathing steady, shoes pounding the wooden path that wrapped along the beach, when I caught the flash of headlights in my peripheral vision. A black SUV, rolling onto the pedestrian trail like it belonged there. I yanked out one earbud, spun toward it, and waved both arms furiously. Are you kidding me? This is a footpath. The car rolled forward a little more, then stopped. My heart was racing now, not from the run, but from pure adrenaline. The driver's window eased down with a soft electric whir. I expected arrogance. Some smug jerk with sunglasses and excuses. Instead, I saw a man. Older than me, maybe mid-40s. Broad-shouldered. Calm. His hands were on the wheel, but his expression, tired, almost apologetic, caught me off guard. I'm sorry, he said. I'm completely lost. I blinked. Lost? This is a pedestrian zone. There are signs. I didn't see them. The GPS brought me down a dead-end street, then rerouted me here. He sounded genuine, not flustered, not defensive. That annoyed me more than if he'd been a jerk. You could have hurt someone. You're right, he said quietly. That shut me up faster than I wanted it to. I stood there, sweaty, irritated, chest still heaving. I'll reverse out, he added. Slowly. Promise. I crossed my arms. You're not from here. No. Just visiting. Then maybe start by not driving on the boardwalk. His lips curved, not quite a smile. Just the trace of one. Good advice. I'll remember that. He shifted into reverse, carefully maneuvered the car back the way it came, tires crunching over sand and wood. I stood there a full minute after he disappeared. I don't know why I was so worked up. Maybe it was how calm he was. How unshaken. Like he'd already survived worse than a stranger, yelling at him in the middle of a run. Or maybe it was the way he looked at me. Not like I was overreacting. Like I reminded him of something. Or someone. I shook it off. Put the earbud back in. Kept running. But my rhythm was off now. And no matter how fast I went, I couldn't outrun that look in his eyes. Before I continue this, hit that subscribe button. I post one real story every single day. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? I'm always curious who my stories are reaching. I didn't expect to see him again. Honestly, I didn't want to. Not because he was rude. He wasn't. Not because he did anything wrong. He didn't. But because there was something in his voice, that calm, grounded tone, that stayed with me longer than I wanted to admit. And I hated when people stayed with me. They usually left eventually. Or worse, they stayed just long enough to undo everything I'd built. So when I walked into the cafe near the marina the next morning, still sore from the run and caffeine-starved, and saw him at the counter, I froze. Black jacket. That same quiet presence. Turning slightly toward the door. Our eyes met. And for one terrifying second, I thought he might pretend not to recognize me. But he didn't. Instead, he nodded, not too eager, not performative. Just enough. Then he said, "Hey." I hesitated. Then, "You found the real road this time." A smile flickered across his face. No boardwalks were harmed in today's commute. I almost smiled. Almost. I stepped to the side, avoiding eye contact as I waited for my coffee. The barista handed it to me with a tight smile. I turned to leave. "Wait," he said, not loud. Just enough for me to hear. I paused. He was still by the pickup counter. Still calm. Still watching me without pressure. "I wanted to thank you," he said. "For what?" I asked. "For not pretending I didn't scare you yesterday." I frowned. "You did. A little. I know. And you called it out. Most people would have just muttered or walked away." "Yeah, well, I'm not most people." I figured. He let the silence sit there between us for a beat. "I'm Daniel," he added. I don't know why I said it, but I replied, "Lena." There was something strange about saying my name out loud to him. It didn't feel like small talk. It felt claimed. Like he'd remember it. "Nice to meet you properly," he said. I glanced toward the door. My instincts screamed to leave, but my feet didn't move. Instead, I asked, "Why are you here?" "In town, I mean." His face changed. Slightly. The eyes, especially. "Passing through," he said. "Needed a change of scenery." That vague, huh? That honest. I nodded, unsure why the simplicity of his answer made me feel heavier. "You run a lot?" he asked. I looked at him. "Enough. To get away or to get back to yourself?" "Both," I said before I could stop it. He didn't flinch. Didn't pry. "You." "Me? What do you do when you need to breathe again?" He looked out the window. "I drive. I stop at places I've never seen. I listen to people who don't know I'm listening." That surprised me. "Creepy," I said with a smirk. He smiled. Really smiled, this time. Only a little. I stepped back. Coffee in one hand. Keys in the other. My heart doing something it shouldn't. "I should go," I said. "I know." We both stood there. Not quite ready to move. "Do you usually talk to strangers who yell at you in the street?" I asked. "No," he said. "Only the ones who mean it." I didn't respond. But I didn't stop thinking about it either. The next morning, I went running again. Same path. Same hour. Hoping the rhythm would drown out whatever part of me had stirred in that cafe. But halfway through the route, I paused. I stared at the bench near the trail where he had parked. Empty. I hated the disappointment that crawled up my spine. I didn't even know him. But somehow, he'd gotten in. Through the silence. Through that steady voice and those tired eyes. And I didn't know what to do with that. So I kept running. Harder this time. Faster. Trying to outrun the way his voice sounded when he said my name. 3 days passed. I didn't see him. Not on the boardwalk. Not near the cafe. Not even in passing. The way you sometimes notice someone without really meaning to. And I told myself that was good. That normal life was resuming. That whatever strange pull I'd felt was just a fluke. A ripple in the routine. But that didn't explain why I kept glancing toward the marina every time I passed it, or why every runner who looked remotely like him made my stomach twist. I didn't even know him. But somehow, in that quiet way he spoke, like he didn't want to fill the silence, only share it, he had carved out space in my mind. And I hated that. So when I saw him again, sitting on the low seawall at the far end of the beach, arms resting on his knees, looking out over the gray water, I almost turned around. Almost. But he saw me first. He didn't wave. He didn't call out. He just looked. Like he'd been waiting. I kept walking, pretending I didn't notice. Then, just when I passed him, I heard, "You still run like the world's chasing you." I stopped. Slowly turned. "And you still sit like you're trying to disappear." He nodded once. That hint of a smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Sit with me." I hesitated. Then sat. Not too close. Not too far. Just enough. The ocean was flat that day. Pale and quiet. Like it didn't want to interrupt. "You come here a lot?" I asked. "Lately." To stare at the water? To breathe. We sat in silence. Not awkward. Not easy either. Just full of all the things we weren't saying. I broke it first. "You always this? Calm?" His eyes didn't leave the horizon. "No." "Then why now?" "Because I've already lived through the worst version of myself. And I didn't like him." That hit harder than I expected. "Same," I said quietly. He glanced at me. "I don't think you're anything like the worst version of yourself. That's because you don't know me." "Then tell me." I swallowed. My ex made me feel like a storm. Said I was too much. Too intense. Too complicated. Was he right? No. But I believed him anyway. He nodded. "I know that kind of belief. It sticks. It makes you small," I whispered. "Even when you're screaming." He didn't speak. Just reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out something small, a worn pebble, smooth and dark. "My wife used to collect these," he said. "One from every beach we ever visited. Said they were proof she'd survived another tide." I looked at him, not speaking. "She died 3 years ago," he continued. "Cancer. Fast. Cruel. I'm sorry. So was she. He turned the pebble in his hand slowly. I stopped picking them up after she passed. Felt pointless. But then I found one the other day without meaning to. And I kept it. He held it out to me. I stared at it. At his fingers. At the man offering me something he hadn't shared with anyone in years. I took it. Gently. Why give this to me? Because you look like someone who survived more than she says out loud. And I think you need to be reminded that you're still standing. I held the stone in my palm, suddenly breathless. You barely know me. Sometimes knowing is just listening without interrupting. I felt the tears sting behind my eyes. But I didn't let them fall. Not here. Not yet. You're dangerous, Daniel. Why? Because you make it really hard to keep pretending I don't feel anything. His eyes met mine. Quiet. Steady. You don't have to feel everything at once. Just let it exist. We sat like that. No more words. Just the soft rhythm of the sea and a silence that, for the first time in a long time, didn't feel like punishment. It felt like the beginning of something I hadn't dared believe in. Peace. I carried the stone in my pocket for 3 days. Not because I didn't know what to do with it. Because I did. It was his. It meant something. And he gave it to me. Every time I touched it, I remembered the way his voice softened when he said she was gone. How he said it without asking for pity. Just truth. Just pain, aged and worn. And something about that made me want to see him again. Not for comfort. Not for curiosity. But because it felt like something unfinished had quietly begun. I found him at the same spot, the seawall, just before sunset. He was holding a book this time. Not reading. Just tracing the edge of the pages with one hand, like it helped him think. You always sit here alone? I asked. He didn't flinch. Didn't look surprised. He turned to me like he'd been waiting. Only when I'm hoping someone might join me. I sat down beside him. Wordless at first. Then I pulled the stone from my pocket and placed it between us on the ledge. He looked at it. Then at me. You kept it, he said. I told myself I'd give it back. But you didn't. No, I said quietly. Because I don't want to pretend it didn't matter. He looked away. Toward the horizon. That's brave, he said. No. It's just honest. He nodded slowly. Like he knew the difference. Why are you really here, Daniel? He blinked. Now. No. In this town. Sitting by the ocean. Wandering through a life that isn't yours. He paused. Then answered. I came here because I thought I'd feel nothing. And for the most part, I didn't. Until you screamed at me. I laughed. Startled. That's what it took? Apparently. I exhaled. I wasn't fair to you that day. You were scared. Not rude. I looked at him. Why didn't you get angry? I don't waste energy on what I don't understand. And me. He turned toward me. You didn't scare me, Lena. You woke me up. The silence after that wasn't peaceful. It was full. Dense. I touched the stone again. Sometimes I feel like I'm still trying to prove I deserve to be seen, I whispered. You do. It's not that simple. It is for me. I turned away, eyes stinging. I don't know what this is. You don't have to. What if I feel too much? He smiled, small, warm, tired. Then feel it. I'm not going anywhere. I looked at him again, and this time, he didn't break eye contact. I don't want to be something you cling to out of loneliness. You're not, he said softly. You're something I want to stay near because being near you makes the rest of the noise quieter. I didn't know what to say. He didn't wait for a reply. Instead, he reached for my hand, slow, careful, asking, and I gave it to him. His fingers closed around mine like we'd done this 100 times before. I leaned my head on his shoulder. Not because I was tired, but because I wanted to stop guarding everything all the time. We sat like that. The sun lowered. The air cooled. And I realized I wasn't holding back anymore. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't waiting for someone to pull away first. I was staying. Fully. Quietly. And he was still here. I didn't go home that night. Not because I meant to stay, but because leaving felt too loud and his silence felt too safe. We sat on that seawall until the light disappeared. Neither of us moved. My head stayed on his shoulder. His hand stayed over mine. When I finally lifted my face, the air between us changed. "What happens now?" I asked, barely above a whisper. He didn't answer right away. His thumb traced a small circle across the back of my hand, one of those unconscious gestures that says more than words. "That depends on what you need," he finally said. I pulled away, just enough to look at him. His eyes were darker in the night, but kind, always kind. "What if I don't know what I need?" I said. "Then we take our time." "I'm not used to slow." "I am." That answer held more weight than I expected. We walked in silence back toward his car. I should have said goodbye. I should have turned toward my apartment. But instead, when he opened the passenger door and looked at me like he wasn't going to ask, I got in. He drove with one hand on the wheel, the other resting loosely on his knee. I kept glancing at him out of the corner of my eye, memorizing the way the streetlights touched his face, the calm in his expression, the way he didn't push. He didn't ask me what I was thinking. He didn't try to fill the space. When we got to the bookstore building, he parked. Didn't move. The engine ticked in the silence. "I can drive you home," he offered, softly. "I know." We both sat there. Then he said, "Or you can come upstairs and just not be alone." That broke something in me. "I'm not good at sleeping around people," I said. "You won't have to. I'll stay in the other room. You don't owe me anything." That mattered more than he knew. So I nodded. Upstairs, the apartment was warm. Lived in. Still filled with the weight of a woman who once shared it with him. I noticed the bookshelf by the door. 2 mugs already on the counter. A folded blanket at the end of the couch. "You expected me," I said. "No," he replied. "I hoped." He handed me a fresh t-shirt and a pair of flannel pants. They might be too big, but soft is better than nothing. I changed in the bathroom. When I came out, he was already in the kitchen, pouring tea. No questions. No expectation. Just the quiet comfort of someone who didn't need more than my presence. We sat on the couch. I wrapped the blanket around my legs. He didn't come close, but his body leaned slightly in my direction, like gravity did the work we were both afraid to name. "I don't know how to do this," I admitted. He looked at me. Not surprised. Not disappointed. "I'm not asking you to," he said. "I'm just asking you not to leave when it starts to feel real." My throat tightened. "That's usually when I run." "I know," he said. "And if you do, I'll understand. But I won't follow. Not unless you want me to." I couldn't look at him, because I already knew I wouldn't run this time. "I used to think love was supposed to be loud," I whispered. "Big, dramatic, full of declarations. And now? Now I think maybe it's just someone making tea for you without asking what kind you want, because they remember." He smiled. "I'm glad you yelled at me that day." I laughed, too quickly. "I wasn't." "No," he said, softer now. "But it brought you here." I looked down at my hands. "I'm scared of wanting this." He moved, slowly, resting his hand over mine again. "You already do." I looked at him, and finally said what had been clawing its way to the surface for days. "I don't know how to let someone stay." He didn't flinch. Didn't move away. "Then let's start small," he said. "Let me stay for one night." Just one. And I did. That night, I fell asleep beside someone who didn't ask for anything I wasn't ready to give. Someone who didn't try to fix me. He just stayed. And that was everything. I woke before the sun. The room was still. Dim gray light slipped through the curtains, just enough to remind me that the world still existed beyond this moment. But for now, I didn't move. I stayed in the bed, wrapped in a blanket that wasn't mine, inside a home that didn't belong to me, beside someone who hadn't tried to claim me. I could hear him in the other room. Soft footsteps. The sound of water. A kettle heating. He'd kept his word. He hadn't touched me. Hadn't crept into the room. Hadn't even knocked. But he stayed, And somehow, that made me feel more wanted than anything loud or obvious ever had. I finally pushed the blanket off and stepped out onto the wooden floor. The chill made me shiver, but not enough to turn back. He was at the window, sipping from a mug, eyes fixed on the sea. He didn't hear me right away. I stood there for a moment, just watching him, the way his shoulders curved slightly inward, like he carried something he never put down, no matter how much time had passed. "You always up this early?" I asked quietly. He turned. Not startled. Not surprised. "Old habits," he said. "I used to get up before her." "Your wife?" He nodded. She liked waking to the smell of coffee. Said it made her feel safe. I walked over slowly, leaned against the counter. "Do you still make it for her?" He didn't answer right away. "Sometimes I still pour 2 cups, he said. Then realize I don't need to. My chest ached for him in a way I couldn't explain. "You don't have to talk about her," I said gently. "I know," he said. "But I want you to know she was my anchor." "I don't say that to make you feel like a replacement." "I don't." "Good," he said. "Because you're not. You're a separate truth." I felt tears rise, sharp and uninvited. "You make it hard not to fall for you," I whispered. "I'm not trying to make anything happen," he said. "I'm just trying to be honest with you, and with myself." I set my mug down. Stepped closer. "There's something terrifying about not being the one who cares more," I said. "You think you do?" "No," I said. "I think we're both terrified for different reasons." He looked down. Smiled a little. The tired kind of smile people wear when they've seen too much of life and still choose to stay soft. "What's yours?" I asked. He met my eyes. "That if I let myself need you and then lose you, I won't come back from it this time." I stepped forward, close enough to reach him. "You won't lose me," I said softly. "You don't know that." "I don't. But I know I'm here." I chose to be. He exhaled through his nose. Not quite a sigh. Just letting go of some weight. "I think I've wanted to be seen for so long. I forgot what it felt like to let someone close." "You let me close," I said. "Not yet," he whispered. "But I want to." His voice cracked on the last word. And I felt something shift. Not in fear. In surrender. I placed my hand on his chest, right over where his heart beat slow and steady. His hand came up over mine, held it there like he was afraid I might float away if he didn't anchor me. "I don't want perfect," I said. "I don't even want promises. I just want real." His forehead rested against mine. "You are the most real thing that's happened to me in years," he said. We didn't kiss. We didn't need to. In that quiet room, with the ocean murmuring through the window and the smell of coffee wrapping around us like a blanket, we stayed. 2 people, shaped by grief, softened by timing, and slowly, finally, letting each other in. A week passed. Then 2. The world didn't pause for us. Emails kept arriving. Deadlines pressed against my phone screen like reminders of the life I used to fit into before all this. And yet, I didn't leave. I kept waking up in Daniel's apartment, sometimes on the couch, sometimes curled next to him in the softest version of silence I'd ever known. We didn't define anything. We didn't call it love. But every night, when he'd hand me tea without asking how my day was, when he'd press his hand to the small of my back just long enough for me to feel grounded, I knew. Whatever this was, it was real. It was careful and steady and just big enough to hold both of us as we were. One morning, I stood barefoot in his kitchen, flipping through a book from the shelf. The light was soft, warm, familiar. Daniel stepped behind me, resting a hand lightly on my shoulder. "I booked something," he said. I turned. "What?" "A cabin. North Coast. Just for a weekend." My breath caught. Not because I didn't want to go, but because that meant this was becoming something that existed outside these walls. "Is that okay?" he asked. I looked at him. The man who used to sit alone at the edge of the sea like he was waiting for grief to pull him under. And now he was asking me to meet him in the next chapter. I smiled. "Yeah, it's okay." He let out a breath I didn't know he was holding. "I've never done this like this before," I said. He brushed a strand of hair from my face. I know, he said. Me neither. Before I continue, I just want to say thank you. These stories are real. They're mine. And I share one every day. If you want to hear more, subscribe. Later that night, we sat on the rooftop, legs dangling over the edge like two teenagers in borrowed time. The town lights shimmered below. He held my hand, thumb moving slowly in a quiet rhythm against my skin. I was never looking for this, I whispered. I know. And I still don't know what we are. He looked at me. Not afraid. Just open. Then let's stop trying to name it. Let's just live it. I nodded. And for the first time in years, I didn't need to ask what came next. Because I knew. It would be us. Unfolding slowly. Softly. Without needing to be perfect. Just true. And that finally was enough.